Welcome to another silly adventure. This one starts at a bus stop just a few hundred metres from my house, but will take me over 12,000 miles in under 2 weeks via bus, train and plane. First stop, Preston Railway Station for the Avanti West Coast service down to London Euston, and in news that will shock absolutely no one, it's delayed by nearly half an hour. It's okay though, as the next 12 days are going to include some delays that will make this hold up pale into insignificance. Let's go! Originally, I'd planned to drive to Heathrow, but given the only car I can take there thanks to the ultra-low emission zone nonsense is an MG-ZR with very hard suspension, no cruise control, I opted to let the train take the strain instead. 25 minutes on the bus and just shy of 2.5 hours of locomotion would get me into the heart of London. A bit of additional faffing with the underground and a bus would plonk me at the door of my favourite Heathrow stopover, the Premier Inn on Bath Road just outside the airport perimeter. London's extensive transport network helped the rest of the journey go without a hitch, the only minor irritation being the usual tube versus heavy suitcase battle, as many of the stations don't have a lift. Alighting at Hayes and Harlington, I jumped on a bus for the last few minutes of the first day's travel. If I was travelling a little bit lighter, I'd have used this opportunity to bump up the day's step count and walk to the hotel. But by this point, I was thoroughly fed up of manhandling the uncooperative lump of luggage and took the lazy way out instead. The purple paradise awaits. As usual for this hotel, check-in was swift and efficient, and the room held a bit of a surprise.
A while ago I bought some shares in Whitbread, who own Premier Inn, and you get free breakfast with the card, so it's pretty much the only reason I did it. But when checking in today, the guy said I've upgraded your room for you. It's nice of him. It's not an official perk, but I'll take it. This room's actually really nice. We've got a little chair, coffees and chocolates, and a very purple bathroom. I mean, it's 7 o'clock at night, so this is probably far too late for a coffee, but never mind. Problem for later.
After a quick stop in the restaurant for a slab of cow with some Guinness, I got an early night in preparation for the next day's 10-hour flight to Vancouver. The next morning's breakfast was as expected, decent enough, and nothing tasted like it had been sat around for too long. I added oodles of freshly ground coffee thrown on top for good measure. Then, as I had a 5-hour gap between checking out of the hotel and checking in for my flight, I thought I'd take a walk under Heathrow's flight path. I'm sure living underneath it would get a little annoying, but as a visitor, I had a great time. Finally, it was time to head to Terminal 5 for today's flight, which went well.
So, absolute nightmare, bit of a false start there. Turns out I need to fly from Terminal 3, not Terminal 5, so off to go and jump on the Heathrow Express. Luckily, we left loads of time.
This was entirely my fault. Quite literally every piece of documentation I had stated that my flight left from Terminal 3, but I'd completely forgotten this and headed to T5 on autopilot. Luckily the various trains linking the terminals are free, so it was easy to uncock this one up, and soon I was where I should have been to begin with. As I'm in Club World, British Airways name for business class, I could use the lounge, but thanks to the earlier terminal faux pas, I didn't have long there before I had to head to my gate. Nestled in my booth on the A350, I cracked straight on with a few episodes of Chernobyl, you know, something bright and cheery to really kickstart those holiday vibes. It wasn't long until the two gigantic Rolls-Royce Trent XWB engines hauled 300 tons of Airbus into the skies with nothing more than a dull rumble. I'm always so impressed with how quiet the A350 is on board. managed to get some great views of the surrounding area while climbing out. Surprising given how miserable the day's weather had been, but I'll take it. British Airways then loaded up the food cannon and fired it in my direction. First was this odd cheese-based starter with the traditional split bread roll, followed by an excellent cut of beef with a dense slab of something potato and cheese based. Not sure that's its official name though. While I reckon Club World is a great cabin to be in, it still doesn't let you forget that you're in a tube full of strangers for the best part of 10 hours. Eventually, we started to descend into Vancouver, and not a moment too soon. The crew and service were excellent, but anything more than 6 hours on a plane is a bit much for me. Pulling up next to this Qantas jet, we all waited patiently for that lovely "you can now stand up" bong. We then made our way through to arrivals in Vancouver Airport. It's certainly a lot less dull than some others I've visited, with several subtle nods towards the area's culture and history as you head through to passport control. The Canada line runs from directly outside the terminal to the heart of Vancouver, making this by far the best connected airport I've visited in Canada and the USA. No fuss, no change in lines, just hop on and you'll be downtown in no time. A luggage rack would have been nice, but you can't win them all. 24 minutes later, and here we are in Yaletown, downtown Vancouver. Time to get some rest, in preparation for tomorrow's adventure. How's this for a crisp, cool Canadian morning? Couldn't really have asked for better weather.
Alright, so it's the start of day one. I didn't do a round the room tour when I got in last night because I was absolutely dead. I enjoyed my flight, but I knew that landing here at 7 in the evening local time meant that I shouldn't really go to sleep. So I watched a load of series on the in-flight entertainment, which was surprisingly good. Played a little bit of Pokemon Red on my phone because I'm a very old soul. And just came back to the room pretty much collapsed. I remember speaking to the security and immigration guy, and I wasn't making much sense because of just how tired I was. And he was a little tiny bit suspicious, but I printed out my itinerary, passed a copy of that over to him, and he was like, "Sure, you're just exhausted." I was like, "Yeah, really am. Thank you for letting me in."
The hotel was a bit of a maze, but I was soon outside and taking in what would turn out to be one of my favourite cities in the world. The views go from concrete jungle to beautiful harbour just a few minutes from where I was staying, with a blanket of mist across the bay as a finishing touch. These shots are taken from Canada Place, a multi-purpose site featuring a hotel, convention centre, the Vancouver World Trade Centre and a cruise ship terminal. As you can see, it's a great spot if you're looking for some epic holiday pictures, and it's completely free to walk along. Making my way towards Stanley Park, which you can see in the distance, I stumbled across Harbour Air's fleet of seaplanes, which are surprisingly cheap to hop on board for some sightseeing. I then diced with death walking along this half-frozen jetty, which felt very precarious in the icy conditions, but it made up for it by being the perfect place to see this seaplane touch down.
a Canadian goose. Or I guess here it's just a goose.
Thanks for that insight, David Attenborough. This is where the city transforms into a vast wilderness, the absolutely stunning Stanley Park, with endless trails, scenery, and bits of history to take in along the way. I walked the length of the park to the Lionsgate Bridge, a place with unmatched elevated views of the city skyline and beyond. I'm not a huge fan of heights, so this was a little iffy at times, but thankfully I was soon back on solid ground over the other side of the Burrard Inlet. I had to pop into Loblaws and stock up on a no-name t-shirt after seeing their stuff online, then re-donned my big boy pants and headed back across the bridge to tackle the other half of Stanley Park. Banks of mist rolled in throughout the crossing, adding a touch of damp to proceedings, but making for excellent footage, I guess. However, once back in the park itself, the weather was crisp and dry. The paths aren't always clearly marked, so I'd make sure you have your mapping application of choice ready. It'd be really easy to get lost in here. I weave my way through the park, taking in the various points of interest and heading slowly downhill towards the beaches lining its western edge. Even on this relatively cold day, there were a few people swimming in the sea. Impressive. There's a huge outdoor pool area that's filled during the summer months, ideal if you're visiting with kids. Once I'd finished filling my shoes with sand, I stumbled across a ferry to Granville Island, and yes, the boat really is as small as it looks. Carrying a handful of people, this is only one step up from crossing the water in a bathtub, but it was lots of fun and very cheap too. Continuing on foot, I spotted something I'd never seen in real life before.
So apparently, this is a thing which is pretty cool. With its own electricity cables suspended above the road. Just reminded me a bit of Russia and things I'd seen on YouTube in the past. Cool.
Walking across the Granville Bridge back towards downtown, I had a couple of things left on today's to-do list, but first, a quick pit stop for some post-its to cover an annoying flashing LED in my hotel room. That dealt with, I tracked down the Gastown steam clock. Worth a visit if you're passing, it's certainly more than a little unusual. Built in 1977, it puts on a bit of a show every 15 minutes, but with my last stop of the day a good 45-minute walk, I had to keep on moving. And here we are, Off the Rail Brewing Company, a brewery and tap room recommended by several people I know who visited Vancouver over the years. Tippled, I walked back downtown for some poutine before calling it a day after more than 40,000 steps. The next day dawned, and having slept like a baby for nearly 12 hours, I was raring to go. Good job, as it's a travel day. I'd be heading to Calgary via WestJet for my second Canadian city of this trip. Yellowknife Station is a short hop from the hotel, and thanks to that wonderful SkyTrain transport system, I'd be at the airport in no time. Little touches like the leaf imprints in some pavements make places Vancouver that little bit more welcoming. Costing practically zero at the time of construction, it's one of many ways this system feels just a touch more homely than most I've visited. A lack of lifts at some stations on the SkyTrain network also feels very London-esque, but thankfully I'd had my Weetabix and was soon on the platform ready to battle the airport once again. The domestic terminal at Vancouver feels a lot more calm than its hectic international counterpart. I grabbed a bite to eat and even found a power outlet to give the power bank a quick top up before boarding. After a short hop of just over an hour, the fully loaded 737-700 soon had me back on the ground in Calgary, and it began the tedious wait for my suitcase to be unloaded. Unlike international flights, there's no passport control, so the wait for luggage to arrive on the carousel can be a bit of a drag as you walk straight from your gate to this area in a matter of minutes. While waiting, I planned the route to my hotel, a simple one-bus trip with a 15-minute walk at the other end. As with most Canadian transport systems I used, it felt well planned and wasn't too crowded, and after navigating many deserted streets on foot once it alighted, I found the Holiday Inn Express located in the downtown area.
Now, I'm not really one for room tours, but I feel like we're going to have to have a little bit of a walk around this one. There's a tiny kitchen and some terrible lighting. I probably should have turned that on, but I can't figure out how to do that. But there's a sofa, a chair, everything has its own room. Oh, and there's a bathtub. I've just walked in about -5 to get here, and yeah, we're going to be using that.
Oh boy, you think that's cold? You have no idea what's coming, buddy.
And this heater that sounds like it's trying to take off, but it's all good. And a massive bed. And a light switch that does nothing. Oh. And the bottom screw feels like it's live. Yeah, it's a bit spicy, won't be touching that. Okay. Well, there we go. Apparently this is an upgrade and I'm quite happy with it. It's pretty big. With a complimentary electrocuted light switch. I will tell them about that just so they can fix it before the next person stays here. I'll just remember not to touch it.
A quick explore of the local area later to rack up some more steps, and I nabbed an early night in preparation for a full day of exploring Calgary. A big shout out to the breakfast buffet at this hotel, a decent selection of food, and this rather snazzy pancake maker is included free of charge with every stay. Full of maple syrup infused goodies, I headed out to find out what the city was all about, and while it had some interesting places to explore, including a western wear shop, bizarrely, it felt like a ghost town compared to Vancouver.
Walking through downtown Calgary, over the river and up through the parks. Two observations. One, as I've touched on many times, it's very cold. And two, just no one here. It's so quiet compared to Vancouver. If noise and bustle isn't your thing, Calgary's definitely a step up, but it was weird arriving last night. There was just no one around either, but I thought that's because it was Sunday night. Monday, everyone will be out. Nope, they're all sensible and staying indoors. Don't really blame them, but it does mean get a little bit of peace, which is lovely.
The bridge ahead links the mainland to St Patrick's Island Park and the Calgary Zoo. The normally vast Bow River had been reduced to flowing on just one side of the island thanks to a recent spell of cold weather, even by Calgary standards.
I don't think we're going to try and cross that.
It seems the park had also suffered, with about half the various footpaths closed or completely iced over. I did enjoy the impromptu maze this created, and after finding many dead ends, I found my way across another bridge to the north side of the city.
Rapids ahead. I think today at least, we're fairly safe. Great view though.
The puzzle wasn't over yet though, as the main path along the river I'd planned to take was also closed for construction work. Instead, I got to take this seemingly endless spiral staircase to a nearby Calgary transit station and hopped on the C train for a bit of sightseeing. Eventually, I found a way to Prince's Island Park, where a team were prepping a large area of river they'd dammed to form this huge ice skating area. It seemed to stretch as far as the eye could see into the distance. Feeling the cold, I ducked into Starbucks for a rather tall corporate coffee, then made my way downtown to find somewhere for a spot of lunch. This place hooked me in for a tactical dessert. If you're passing, do pop in, as their selection was incredible. As the cold abated ever so slightly, the streets did start to fill up a little, but it still felt oddly quiet for what I'd imagine would be a bustling metropolis. The next day's early morning flight to Yellowknife meant finding my way from the city centre to the airport in much colder conditions. Annoyingly, I managed to just miss a bus, meaning a wait of around 30 minutes. Not the end of the world, but I'd packed my cold weather gear away to travel light. This felt like a mistake. Thankfully, I still had plenty of time to sit and watch them prep today's noble steed from the comfort of the terminal. Another 737 was doing the grunt work, and like my last flight, it was also filled to the rafters. Stepping off the plane made me appreciate what real cold felt like. It was a nippy -20 on touchdown. There's a free shuttle service between the airport and my lodgings. I'd picked the well-reviewed Explorer Hotel for this leg of the trip. Check out that view from my room. Can't ask for more than that. Dark skies soon gave way to a wonderful light show on my first night. Yellowknife is regarded as one of the best places to see the Northern Lights, and it didn't disappoint. Feeling brave, I decided it would be a great time to test out the gear I'd packed to help deal with the cold. Let's see how that went. As you can see, I may as well voice over this, and to be honest, the audio would have been better if I had, but I feel like I really need to capture the moment of just how blooming cold it is. It's currently -22, but with wind chill, that's -35 apparently. But it's okay, because tomorrow it's meant to be even colder. I can't even. And I assume that massive satellite dish is some kind of uplink to the outside world, because everything here is just on its own. There's no main sort of electricity connection to the rest of the American or Canadian grid, or whatever you want to call it. It's basically, the Yellowknife area seems to just have its own grid. And this morning there's a power outage, luckily it's back on now. But yeah, everything goes out here, you're kind of screwed. I can't even begin to describe what proper cold feels like. For someone like me who is, not really averse to bad weather, but I thought I could handle cold. I was wrong. I'm running back to my hotel, which is over there. Got gloves, this face thing, I've got hat, and doesn't even make a dent. I've got like 4 layers on, and you can still feel everything. This is insane. But kind of fun, for very short periods of time. But we're gonna go and get warm now. So there's just a fox running across the road there. The fuck? Dude, it's freezing, go inside.
Going up.
I don't even have words for what just happened. Can't even speak. While I was out there, my eyes started running, which then froze my eyelashes together. And then I guess I had something to cry about. This place is wild.
Finally, the day I've been waiting for so long is here. It's time to take the Buffalo Airways hangar tour I'd booked. First things first, before I head over to Yellowknife Airport where Buffalo are based, I need to grab some essential supplies. Got some bits and pieces, biscuits to take home, and some treats for the guys and girls over at Buffalo. And let's go and get ready to brace the cold, because gonna need that coat today. The hoodie is not cutting the mustard. As I'm a bit of an idiot, I ignored my own advice and opted to throw my thicker Buffalo Airways hoodie over the top of my other clothes and headed to the airport. Luckily the hotel's transfer bus was happy to take me, and Buffalo is around 15 minutes walk from the main terminal. As you can see, any bit of moisture just turns to ice and then freezes to your face. That's good. Entry is via the main waiting room. There's plenty to look at here, so make sure you leave some time for this mini museum if you're planning to visit. From Buffalo specific items to general Northern aviation artifacts, it took a good while to get through everything on display. Once I'd finished clogging up the waiting area, I headed down the corridor to Buffalo Airways showroom. This is where hangar tours begin, and I met Amy, who'd be showing me around today. Amy knew an incredible amount about the fleet and operations at Buffalo, and walking outside I was surprised to see a 737 had recently joined the fleet. This 737-300 is used for cargo operations and is their first jet aircraft, registration C-FBAE. Having watched Ice Pilot's NWT, to me the next plane was one of the poster children for the Buffalo brand, the mighty DC-3. Still in regular service as you can see by the lack of snow accumulation, C-FLFR was built over 80 years ago as a C-47A Skytrain, and after military service passed through several companies before ending up with Buffalo in 1995. And here's the other. The Curtiss C-46 Commando, C-FAVO, joined the airline a year earlier and featured on Ice Pilots many times. Temporarily out of action for an engine swap, I'm assured she'll be piston pounding through the air again in no time. Another interesting addition, Buffalo's most recent I believe, is this rather slick looking 737-200. Ideal for northern aviation thanks to its gravel kit for unpaved runways, and also curiously fitted with hush kits to its two JT8D engines, Probably a good thing, as those cigar-shaped turbofans are notoriously vocal. I'm keen to see what kind of runs they have C-GTVO performing once she's operational. They're clearly keen to get her into the air as soon as possible, as there was a lot of activity around this airframe today. CL-215 water bombers such as this one also featured heavily on Buffalo's TV series. This is C-FYWP, an example that Buffalo have had on fleet since 2018 from the information I can find online. Amy did a great job explaining how a water bomber works and the challenges of operating them, especially in harsh environments. The Lockheed L-188 Electra is a plane that entered the fleet midway through the Ice Pilot's NWT run, a big step as these were turboprops as opposed to the existing Buffalo fleet of piston pounders. Different fuel, different maintenance requirements and a pressurised hull, all factors that will have made this integration more than a little difficult at times. Defleeted by Atlantic Airlines of England in around the year 2000, C-GXFC found a loving home here, with Chuck working alongside her today. Although he's a busy man, he still made time for a quick photo. Thanks for that, Chuck. It was really good to meet you.
So just leaving Buffalo now, and that was absolutely brilliant. Nothing felt like too much trouble. Got to meet Chuck, he's absolutely lovely. And yeah, really glad I went. So you ever find yourself up this way, which admittedly is fairly unlikely, come and have a look. Book a tour and get yourself some airwear, which I have done. And now I'm going to try and walk back to the hotel because I've not done enough steps today. Let's see how that goes.
I bumped into a very helpful man at a nearby shop who pointed out that Frame Lake, the body of water between the airport and my hotel, was very well frozen owing to the consistently low temperatures over the last few months. Lots of other people were doing the same, with others playing sports and riding snowmobiles, and I didn't end up in the drink, so he must have known what he was talking about. Of course, if you're going to do the same, seek the advice of a local and make sure it's safe to do so first. Walking on any body of frozen water is generally a bad idea unless you know what you're doing or have the advice of someone that does.
Judging by that sluice gate, this is the edge of the lake. And just beyond it, the hotel.
And after walking down this very pretty row of flags, I was finally back in the warmth of the hotel lobby.
In the hotel, needed a nap. That was something else.
Going up.
Let's go and find me a room at the end of this really long corridor.
All too soon, it was time to check out. Due to an incident earlier in January, the lifts were operating at reduced capacity, so luggage had to be either moved by hotel staff or you could carry it down the stairway yourself. Feeling strong thanks to another excellent breakfast, I opted for the latter, then left my suitcase with the hotel staff while I went to have a last look around Yellowknife before heading south. On my walk, a rather unusual restaurant caught my eye. I'm glad I trusted my instinct as the food was absolutely fantastic. Meatloaf and spring rolls might not be a traditional combination, but it worked remarkably well and set me up for another afternoon of chilly hands and feet.
Hello from a very cold Yellowknife. Had to make sure the camera's recording there because everything just stops working when it gets to this sort of temperature. It turned itself off a couple of times yesterday, and my phone lost 12% battery just from going outside, which is crazy. But also kind of fun, I guess. Just walking to the Bush Pilots Monument, something I wanted to see before I go. Flight's at 6 o'clock tonight and it's currently 12:30. So plenty of time, a nice chilled out walk, and I'm going to sit in the lobby of the hotel and stay warm after this. Let's go and see what this monument's all about.
I'd noticed that a lot of vehicles had power cables hanging out of the front. A local chap I met later that day explained that this is for the engine block heaters and battery blankets you need to use to stop everything freezing solid when the car or truck isn't in use. Not something I'd considered, but it makes perfect sense. Even a strong antifreeze mixture will struggle to remain liquid at 30 below freezing. After what felt like days of walking but was actually only around half an hour, the densely populated downtown area started to give way to a more rural landscape. This part of town was also home to lots of small businesses. Care must be taken if you're going to stray outside the city centre, as the pavements aren't as well cleared and I saw a few cars breaking traction even when trying to drive carefully. Finally, I found the entrance to the monument. It's set on a hill called the Rock with several sets of steps leading up to the top. Careful, as these steps can be surprisingly slippery. I stopped to help a couple who'd both fallen over on the way back down. Once at the top, you'll be greeted to stunning views across the area. You can see the houseboats dotted around Yellowknife Bay. There's also a couple of displays with information about the monument itself and the hill it's built upon. As much as I was keen to learn more about the area and its people, I struggled to drag myself away from the 360 degrees of absolute beauty I was surrounded by. Frozen to the core, I tore myself away from the winter wonderland vista atop the rock and headed back to town, passing this rather cute polar bear snow sculpture someone had made. I found this too, a ptarmigan in full winter stealth mode. This is the first time I've ever seen one in the wild.
Nearly back at the hotel now, about 2 minutes away, and this is what being outside for an hour does to you. I'm probably not wearing it right, but it's a lot of moisture and it's a lot of frozen. Interesting experience, but I'm gonna go and defrost now. I think I've earned it.
Yellowknife Airport is fairly small, as you'd expect. The departure area is crammed full of seating and not much else, as it's pretty clear this place was designed when passenger numbers were a lot lower. After an oddly top-heavy muffin, I boarded the Canadian North 737-400. Yup, she's got a few decades under her belt and it shows. Before long, the two CFM56 engines pulled us into the cold night sky towards the next part of this adventure, Edmonton.
So that's me in Edmonton, and the flight I've just got off was a little bit unexpected because it's on a 737-400, which was pretty old and incredibly rattly, and all I'm going to take away from it is that modern planes like the 800 and the Max, they're so much quieter on board. I couldn't hear a blooming thing any of the flight attendants were saying when they were asking me what food I wanted, which was a bit of a pain, but there we go. We're here safely anyway, and now we're going to go into the middle of Edmonton and find the hotel.
I learned from the baggage carousel display that the flight I'd just left was actually a hopper service between several northern communities. Yellowknife was the last stop before Edmonton. The total run between Inuvik and the final destination was over 1,200 miles, double the length of the leg I'd taken. Baggage claimed, I headed to the bus terminal. Annoyingly, the trip into downtown Edmonton requires a change from bus to train at around the halfway point. Feeling incredibly lazy, I thought a fitting end to a freezing cold day would be a decent pizza and some Canadian TV in my hotel room.
One thing I had wondered about Canada is why every hotel room seems to have a microwave. I just picked up this from a pizza place about 7 or 8 minutes down the road. It's minus 22 outside, and it is absolutely stone cold in the time it's taken me to walk just a few blocks away. And I mean properly cold, like being in a fridge cold. And this can was from a shelf in a warm shop, and it's now ice cold. One of these things is good, one is slightly annoying. So I'm going to use that microwave.
The next morning was beautiful, but I'd learned earlier in the week that a bit of sun does not guarantee outside is anything close to warm. Time to layer up.
Last night, coming into Edmonton, I assumed that because Yellowknife is the coldest place on the planet, or what felt like it, I wouldn't need my hat or my little neck scarf thing. That was a mistake. So today, we're properly dressed, because it's still minus 20 here, and I didn't compensate for that in how I dressed yesterday.
After taking wisdom from this helpful graffiti, I hopped on a bus towards the Alberta Aviation Museum, which turned out to be closed. Bummer. Never mind, I opted to accidentally ice skate down some very frozen pavements and try and burn off some of last night's pizza. I'd missed breakfast thanks to a hefty lie-in, so I dipped into a branch of A&W for a root beer and some surprisingly thick gravy. Of all the American chains I'd like to see in the UK, this would probably be my first choice. Thoroughly defrosted and well fed, I tackled some more slippery pavements to head back and prepare for tomorrow's train journey from Edmonton to Vancouver.
Little update from downtown Edmonton. This is VIA's train tracker. It allows you to track the progress of the trains, which is really handy because the Canadian in particular often runs behind schedule. It shares the lines with a lot of freight, and they do warn when booking and on this very page that there are significant delays a lot of the time, and you need to factor that in when planning. So don't book a flight home shortly after you're meant to arrive at your destination, because it could well be delayed, you'll miss your flight, and that's just headache you can avoid and don't want. So at the moment, we're currently running 14 hours behind schedule. So I was meant to board this train at around midnight tonight, and now it's looking to be just after lunchtime tomorrow. Really glad I booked this room for another night, because I don't want to be out there in minus 20, especially, I mean, it's bad enough waiting until midnight for the train. I don't know what I would have done if it was delayed and I hadn't booked this room, because I looked on the Holiday Inn website and it's now 400 Canadian dollars per night for a room like this, and I paid under half of that. Glad I booked it when I did. I had a feeling that something wasn't going to go quite as smoothly as I'd hoped and thought, we'll just tag a second night on there. That 6 cents has paid off. So tonight I'm going to get a small carry-on bag prepared with all the things I need for the train journey, because you can't access your large suitcase once it's in the cargo area of the train. And yeah, get ready, get a good night's sleep, and tomorrow, hopefully, we'll hop on board the Canadian and continue our journey back to Vancouver.
Side note, I've since learnt that it's Via Rail, not VIA Rail. Oops. Ah well, the delay means it's the perfect time for a few pints and a pierogi pizza, an unusual dish offered by the watering hole near my hotel. A quick brownie to cap it all off, and I braced myself for the cold walk back.
So my train was meant to leave from Edmonton at midnight. It's 15 hours delayed, so I decided to go to a bar, maybe a few friends. On the way back, nice big can of peace tea in cherry flavour, and as you can see, it's snowing. And if that's not going to cause more delays tomorrow, I don't know what is. Starting to get a little bit worried about my flight home now, but it is what it is. No point worrying about what you can't change.
Not much footage from the next morning. The train made up a fair bit of time overnight, so things went from chilled out to panic very quickly. The Via Rail station isn't far from the centre of Edmonton. A 10-minute Uber ride later and I was slipping and sliding on the platform towards my room for the next 2 days. And here it is.
We better do the tour of the room, I guess. This is the window chair. These are just free moving, so you can pop it wherever you'd like. In here is the toilet. However, because it's minus 20 outside, apparently all the plumbing is frozen. have to use a loo in the next carriage, which is fine. There's no shower in this room, but this bed folds down, and the lovely chap is going to come and make that at about 7 o'clock for me. And over here we have untitled tube, and that is about it. I want a fan and some AC sockets and some really pleasing toggle switches.
Walking through the carriage, you can tell they're from the 1950s. I absolutely love the retro feel, although I accept it won't be appealing to everyone. Crossing between cars is very cold and slippery. Make sure you wear decent shoes when walking up and down the train. This is the Dome Car. I spent a lot of time here as it offers stunning 360-degree views and the seats are lovely and soft. There's free tea and coffee in the next carriage, which is handy as it can get a bit nippy up here. The main cause of delays on this line is freight traffic. As you'll see, there's plenty of it all the way from end to end, and it causes massive pinch points en route.
From sea to sea. Yes, do you know it in Latin?
I used to.
Amare usque ad mare.
Marty, who kept us entertained in the activity and dome cars, prepared several talks, this one about coins.
That help map the genetic makeup. It has an ECG, the electrocardiogram, that thing.
They're a great audio track for this winter wonderland as we trek through the countryside. Talk over, we're left to our own devices. For some reason, this tunnel caused a lot of excitement amongst the passengers. The train passing is the number 2 service from Vancouver to Toronto, also heavily delayed due to other traffic on the line. As it started to go dark, the temperature in the dome car plummeted. I loaded up with coffee and snacks, settling in for a gorgeous mountain views as we headed into the Canadian Rockies. We stopped off for an hour at Jasper, a small town in the middle of the mountains. I took the opportunity to nip over the road for a few supplies, stretch my legs, and then had a look around the train station itself. It's one of a number of preserved heritage stations within Canada, all detailed on this poster. Soon, it was time to reboard and prepare to settle in for the night.
Just after we reboarded at Jasper, the attendant has come and made the bed, which I've got to say is really comfortable. And the little table gives you somewhere to pop your laptop if you want to watch something before you go to sleep, which I shall be doing.
De Jasper aujourd'hui. Alors on a refait un peu de notre temps perdu.
The in-cabin PA system could get a little annoying, especially later on in the evenings. I woke up the next day feeling like I'd slept for 1,000 years. It was the best night's sleep I'd had in a long time. Impressive given it's my first time on a sleeper train service. Waking up to that incredible backdrop was a highlight of the whole trip. I did wonder why the rooms didn't include a TV, but now I completely understand. You just don't need one. Instead of the formal breakfast, I chose to have a couple of light bites and a coffee in the dome car, and soon Marty joined us for another talk, this time about the train itself.
They will they'll kind of get dropped off to a lake or wherever they need to go, and then they'll kind of canoe back to.
Heading towards Vancouver, the snow began to disappear and give way to the comparatively warm above zero temperatures I'd started the trip with. Thinking that as we were nearly at Vancouver station I should pack my things away, I headed back to my room. I needn't have rushed though, as a couple of freight trains ahead of us held us up for more than 2 hours despite us being less than a mile from our destination.
Hey folks, just ahead of us is the Port Mann Bridge. That's the Port Mann Bridge ahead of us. And when it was open, it was the widest bridge on Earth at 5 lanes each way. Bonjour tout le monde, on va passer le pont Port Mann assez vite, c'est ça. Le Port Mann, quand il était ouvert, était le plus...
Eventually, we were on the move again, and it wasn't long before I arrived back in Vancouver where I'd started this trip well over a week ago. The station building itself is magnificent. I booked myself into the Blue Hotel, a very well reviewed residence near the Rogers Arena. Sadly, I'd neglected to check if there was an event on at the time, which there was, meaning traffic was very heavy and navigating the streets with a heavy suitcase was a bit of an adventure in itself. After somehow ending up in this concrete underpass, I found my lodgings and checked in.
After lots of people, because there's a hockey game I think going on this evening, getting in the way, I finally made it to Hotel Blue, downtown Vancouver, which is very nice. Not normally into my room tours, however, it's a big one. Those are possibly the tallest curtains I've ever seen. And the bedroom is up these stairs, which is kind of cool. They called it a loft suite. So, that's a big TV. I think this will do for one night, and then tomorrow we return home. I'm not gonna lie, I love this trip, but I'm ready. I'm absolutely exhausted. So I'm gonna have a quick wash, go outside, get a bit of food, and go to bed.
A local bar had a decent selection of craft beers and fresh pizza. After a quick bite to eat and a pint to wash it down, I hit the hay in Vancouver for the last time. All this fun was clearly catching up with me. I woke up too late for breakfast again, and instead treated myself to this massive Dairy Queen blizzard and hit the streets to burn off some more of the holiday's indulgence.
Beautiful lake, plane just landed, and some birds. But on there is an ATX power supply. I'm not really sure why.
There was a lot of activity at the harbour today. Plenty of seaplanes were coming and going, including this particularly big example. I couldn't delay the inevitable any longer. It was finally time to head to the airport and jump on another A350 home. The SkyTrain made this a doddle, with some pretty good views over the apron as we approached the airport. I had a quick stop in duty free, as it'd be rude not to, and then a wander around the airport before heading to the lounge. British Airways currently use the Plaza Premium Lounge at Vancouver, which was surprisingly good with very attentive staff on hand. A big shout out to Coco for nabbing me this table with a spectacular view of an incoming China Airlines flight. Boarding was quick and efficient, and we pushed back from the gate exactly on time, ready for the overnighter back to Heathrow and the predictably drizzly British weather. The A350 was whisper quiet compared to the 737s I'd been on over this trip, especially the 400 back from Yellowknife. We passed over Vancouver on our climb, a great chance to say goodbye to a city that's barged its way straight up my favourite places list. I'll definitely be back. An hour before touchdown I woke up, had a coffee, watched some trashy American TV and enjoyed the slightly rocky descent back towards home. And that's about it. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please subscribe for more adventures and hopefully I'll see you next time. In the meantime, take care. Cheers.